Good evening, everyone, and welcome to New York Metro Weather's severe weather briefing on Hurricane Irene. The evening update as Hurricane Irene is now beginning to emerge over the open waters of the Atlantic. Once again, you can see the base reflectivity, the loop, over the past several hours. The hurricane made landfall earlier this morning and had spent a good amount of the day over the Carolinas and is now re-emerging back over the water as it was modeled to do. And you can see this is a large cyclone. The outer bands have had some trouble making it up here. We had initial showers and thunderstorms earlier in the day, and now we're finally beginning to see that push that we've been waiting to see of these bands up through central and southern New Jersey and eventually up into the New York City metro area. The bottom left of your screen, you can see the visible satellite imagery. It's been very impressive all day, and the hurricane is now moving out over open water, as we mentioned, but still a very impressive structure and a very large cyclone with hurricane force and tropical storm force winds extending hundreds of miles away from the center of the hurricane. We look here very quickly. This is a zoomed in view of the model forecast over the next few hours. You can see this band moving in, up and over the region, and then as it continues to do so, the hurricane will make its approach closer up the coast and bring more bands through the area. Heavy rain going to be a very big threat, and you can see the general progression of the storm on the models matches up very well with the radar. And the storm right there on this specific model is located just off the New Jersey coast at 964 millibars. We'll take a look at the actual National Hurricane Center position and track as of 5 o'clock p.m. The winds were sustained at 80 miles an hour, the movement north-northeast at 13 miles an hour. So the hurricane has weakened a little bit over land, but the pressure has remained the same. The storm has not dramatically weakened. It's not expected to do so as it moves up the coast. You can see the position, a hurricane and not a tropical storm until it's well inland over the Connecticut and Massachusetts border. Hurricane warnings remain in effect up and down the entire coast. Here is something that we wanted to show you. We have not really utilized these graphics so far, but this is the probability of tropical storm force winds, and you can see the probability is now over 90% for much of the New York City metro. And these tropical storm force winds are going to act with the heavy rain and the prolific rainfall amounts to create some problems as far as power outages with trees down and other damage in the area. Another wide view satellite image of the mid-Atlantic, and you can see what we were talking about with Irene emerging over the waters of the Atlantic Ocean just off the mid-Atlantic coast, and a very impressive tropical cyclone structure. Here's another great view. We'll zoom in a little bit on this, and here's the emergence we were talking about off the Outer Banks. Didn't quite get into the state of Virginia. It's emerging now to the northeast, which falls well into the model forecast. This is where they had it going off to the east. And then notice how New Jersey is actually to the north and east. If you were to go due north, the storm would go up near Ocean City, Maryland. But it's expected to go north and east and then continue doing so, and that will bring it into the New Jersey coast and eventually into New York Harbor. Here's one more look at the radar, and you can see those heavier bands developing as the storm moves back out over open water. It's expected that these bands are going to become more well-defined with heavier precipitation as they interact with an upper-level jet streak, which will help to enhance the potential for very heavy rainfall. Within that heavy rainfall, the Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk of severe thunderstorms in effect. You can see this green line if you can see it through there. Here's the center of Hurricane Irene. Here's a tornado watch that goes into southern New Jersey, includes Maryland and Delaware. And the slight risk goes up into southern Connecticut, includes New York City Metro and Long Island, with the potential for isolated tornadoes. Although our area doesn't have the best instability right now, there's a ton of low-level shear, and all of these thunderstorms that move in off the water have the potential to rotate and produce an isolated tornado or damaging wind gusts. We talked about the models. Here's the 18Z NAM model from this afternoon, and you can see what it's doing with the surface low, taking it up, increasing forward speed over the next few hours. We just got an alert on our weather system. That's what that beeping was. Increasing forward speed over the next few hours up to just east of Cape May, and then inland somewhere near Long Beach Island or Tom's River around Sunday morning, 8 o'clock a.m. And that's part of the problem we're talking about, because that is the astronomical high tide, and these southeast winds are howling into New York Harbor, and then the storm goes directly over New York City. Interesting to note that the storm has some dry air in the southern side of it, so once the center of the low pressure passes over New York City, the storm could end around then. By the middle afternoon on Sunday, you could see the best of the rain is off to the north. As soon as that surface low passes you, the winds will still be very strong though on the backside of the system. Interesting also, we talked about those bands moving in off the water over the next few hours into the overnight. This is the Storm Prediction Center high resolution WRF, and you can see the track of the system from the Carolinas, and these are the 1 hour precipitation totals. So these are some prolific rainfall totals as this storm comes in. Here's the storm making its pass east of Ocean City, Maryland, now east of Cape May, and then landfalling near New York City. By the time is all said and done, this model right here on the left has rainfall totals upwards of 7 and 8 inches. It's very, very impressive. One more look at the satellite image. You can see here's the outflow of the hurricane, which is now over the water. Here's the heavy rain, which should begin to work into the area. Hurricane warnings remain in effect, tropical storm warnings over the inland areas, and it will continue through the evening. So one more time, we're looking at the development of very, very heavy rain over the next several hours, moving in off the water, developing over the area. This heavy rain will be accompanied by tropical storm force wind gusts, possibly hurricane force wind gusts, as well as a storm surge. If you were watching the news, watching the webcams from areas further south currently experiencing what we will be experiencing in a few hours, there are tremendous waves and a good amount of storm surge on the beaches, and it's not a good scenario. The winds are gusting at tropical storm force hundreds of miles away from the center of this storm system. So although it has weakened a little bit, the threat is just beginning for our area. Also remember, we talked about this in our early morning update, or our afternoon update I believe it was. As the storm moves north, it's expected to begin an extratropical transition, which actually expands the wind field of the storm system and actually develops a little bit of cooler air as the warm core system begins to erode a little bit, which can lead to further instability in the atmosphere, meaning the winds that may not be at the surface but they might be just a few hundred feet above you will mix down to the surface in any heavy rain and thunderstorms, which could lead to the wind damage that we were talking about with the very, very high moisture content in the soil. Also remember, we've been over this a few times, and you probably know it by now, but if you are in an mandatory evacuation area, please get out now, because the mayor of, and this goes for all states, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, they will not be there to help you until the storm is over. You are on your own. So if you want to take that chance, and you are in a Zone A area, that's fine, but know that you are below sea level, and this storm has a pretty significant storm surge with it at an astronomical high tide period, which could create some real problems. Inland, be careful as well, because if you live near a river, inland flooding is going to be extreme during this storm system. There's already a ton of rain. River flood, 3-hour flash flood values are near 1.5 inches, which we could get in an hour on some of these model forecasts. The storm is 12 hours long, so we're talking 6 to 10 inches of rainfall with flash flood guidance at 1.5 inches. You do the math, it could be a pretty significant situation. So here's one more look at the base radar, the base reflectivity. Hurricane Irene continues her movement up the coast. It's going to be a long night in the New York City metro area. Please continue to interact with us on Facebook and on Twitter. Send us your pictures, your damage reports, and your observations. We need you guys more than ever as we try to work with you and keep you safe and updated through this storm. We'll have one or maybe more videos throughout the night. We'll be on 24/7 forecast operations, and we'll talk to you guys soon.